The next sutta is 22.57. The Buddha said, a monk who is skilled in the 7 points, monks, who is an investigator of the 3 ways, he is called accomplished in this Dhamma Vinaya. One who has reached mastership, Superman. Just stop here for a moment. You notice here, the Buddha says, accomplished in the Dhamma Vinaya. The Dhamma Vinaya is the totality of the Buddha's teachings in the suttas. The Buddha always refers to his teachings as the Dhamma Vinaya. The word Tipitaka was coined much later. The Buddha never used the word Tipitaka or Tripitaka. And in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha explains Dhamma Vinaya as meaning Sutta and Vinaya. And so, the Buddha's teachings, according to the suttas, are the suttas and the Vinaya. And the Buddha continues, and how monks is a monk skilled in the 7 points. Herein monks, a monk fully knows body, the arising of body, the ceasing of body, and the way going to the ceasing of body. He fully knows the satisfaction there is in body, the misery that is in body, the escape from body. He fully knows feeling in like manner, and perception and volition. He fully knows consciousness. He fully knows the arising of consciousness, the ceasing of consciousness, and the way going thereto. He fully knows the satisfaction that is in consciousness, the misery that is in consciousness, and the escape from consciousness. And what monks is body? It is the 4 great elements, and that materiality which is derived from the 4 great elements, that monks is called body. From the arising of nutriment comes the arising of body. From the ceasing of nutriment is the ceasing of body. And the way going to the ceasing of body is this Aryan Eightfold Path, namely right view, right thoughts, etc. I'll just stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying body is the 4 great elements and the materiality that is derived from the 4 great elements. What are these 4 great elements? Normally we call it earth, water, fire and wind. But earth, water, fire and wind is not actually earth, water, fire and wind. It is the characteristic of these 4 things. The earth element refers to the hardness characteristic. When, for example, if I touch this metal, it is hard. So, to me, this is the earth element. So, earth is not actually earth, but the characteristic of hardness. And earth, water refers to the quality of cohesion. Water tends to cohere, come together. For example, it is because we have water in our body that we have a certain shape. Suppose you were to dehydrate yourself, take away all the water in your body, what happens is that you cannot have this form. You will collapse. The rest of your body will collapse if you don't have water in your body. So water refers to the element of cohesion. Fire refers to the element of heat, hotness, heat, or coldness. Coldness is the lack of the fire element. And the last one, wind. Wind refers to motion, movement. Because we have the wind element in our body, that's why the blood flows in our body. The food we take in moves through our body. Winds pass through our body, sometimes out of our body, and sometimes from the top as we burp, air comes out. So that is the 4 great elements. And the materiality that is derived from the 4 great elements refers to, for example, odor, taste, elasticity, growth, decay, impermanence, etc. So, from the arising of nutriment comes the arising of body. There must be nutriment for the body to arise. From the ceasing of nutriment is the ceasing of body. If there is no nutriment for the body wastes away, and after a certain number of days, the body will die. And the way to the ceasing of body is the Aryan Eightfold Path, the path to the ending of suffering. And the Buddha continues, that ease, that pleasure which arises because of body, that is the satisfaction that is in body. Insofar as body is impermanent, is fraught with suffering and unstable, that is the misery that is in body. That restraint of desire and lust, that putting away of desire and lust that are in body, that is the escape from body. Whatsoever recluses or Brahmins, monks, by thus fully understanding body, its arising, its ceasing, and the way going to its ceasing, by thus fully understanding the satisfaction, the misery of body, and the way of escape from body, are on the path to weariness, to dispassion, to the ceasing of body. They are well on the path. They that are well on the path are firmly grounded in this Dhamma Vinaya. Moreover, monks, whatsoever recluses or Brahmins, by thus fully understanding body, its arising, its ceasing, and the way going to its ceasing, by thus fully understanding the satisfaction, the misery, and the escape from body, they who are on the path to weariness for body, dispassion, the ceasing of body, are liberated without grasping. They are truly liberated. For them it may be said, there is no more the whirling round. I'll just stop here for a moment to comment. So here the second part, the Buddha is saying, that pleasure which arises because of body, that is the satisfaction that is in body. For example, sensual desire. Because of the pleasure that arises from sensual contact, then we have the satisfaction or the pleasure that arises. That is the satisfaction that is in body. But in so far as body is impermanent, is fraught with suffering and unstable, that is the misery that is in body. So from the body we can get a certain satisfaction, we can get a certain pleasure out of body. But because body is unstable by nature, it can become sick. And when it becomes sick, or it grows old, then you get misery out of the body. Now that restraint of desire and lust, that putting away of desire and lust that are in body, that is the escape from body. So in order that you don't have a body again to suffer, you must put away the desire and lust for the body. As long as we have a desire and lust for the body, then we will continue to have a body after another body. And when you have a body and a mind, then you have to suffer for it. And so when we understand that, then we put away the desire and lust for body, then we are on the path to weariness or disenchantment, to dispassion, to the ceasing of the body. And if we are on the path, then we understand we are firmly grounded in the Dhamma Vinaya, in the teachings of the Buddha. And then later there will be no more the whirling round, samsara. And what monks is feeling? These 6 seeds of feeling, namely feeling that is born of contact with eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, from contact with mind, this monks is called feeling. From the arising of contact comes the arising of feeling. From the ceasing of contact is the ceasing of feeling. And the way going to the ceasing of feeling is this Aryan Eightfold Path, namely right view, right thoughts, etc. That ease, that pleasure which arises because of feeling, that is the satisfaction that is in feeling. Insofar as feeling is impermanent, fraught with suffering and unstable, this is the misery that is in feeling. That restraint of desire and lust that putting away of desire and lust which are in feeling, that is the escape from feeling. Now whatsoever recluses or Brahmins, monks, by thus fully understanding feeling, its arising, its ceasing, and the way going thereto, by thus fully understanding the satisfaction, the misery that is in feeling, and the escape from feeling, are on the path to weariness at feeling, on the path to dispassion, for the utter ceasing of feeling. They are well on the path. They that are well on the path are firmly grounded in this Dhamma Vinaya. Moreover, monks, whatsoever recluses and Brahmins, by fully understanding these things, are truly liberated. For them, it may be said, there is no more the whirling round. I just stop here for a moment to comment that the satisfaction, firstly, feeling arises from contact with the 6 sense organs, with eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. When there is contact, meaning when form appears before the eye, the seeing consciousness arises, and when you pay attention, then a feeling arises. So feeling arises because of eye contact, ear contact, nose, tongue, body, and mind contact. That is feeling. From the ceasing of contact is the ceasing of feeling. When there's no more contact, then there's no more that feeling arising. The way going to the ceasing of feeling is practicing the Aryan Eightfold Path. That is the permanent ceasing of feeling, not a temporary ceasing. Of course, the temporary ceasing is just no contact, then there is no feeling. But the permanent ceasing of feeling is the Aryan Eightfold Path. The pleasure which arises because of feeling, that is the satisfaction of feeling, is impermanent. Because feeling is fraught with suffering and unstable, that is the misery in feeling. And the restraint of desire and lust in feeling, that is the escape from feeling. Now, we know that the whole economy of the country is based on getting good, pleasant feelings. If you can create something that can give people good feelings, you'll be able to sell the product, right? So our whole economy, for example, video shows, video cassettes now are very popular. If you can create a good show and people enjoy seeing that show, they are willing to pay. Similarly, if you are able to produce a good sound, for example, a good sound, people like the music, people are willing to pay for the music. So these all have to do with good feelings. And the Buddha continues, and what monks is perception? These 6 seeds of perceiving, perception of sights, perception of sounds, of smells, tastes, tangibles, and ideas, that monks is called perception. And for those who fully understand it, there is no more the whirling round. So similarly, with contact, after feeling arises perception. And what monks are volition? There are these 6 seeds of volition. The will with respect to sight, sound, smells, tastes, tangibles, and thoughts or ideas. These monks are called volition. From the arising of contact comes the arising of volition. From the ceasing of contact is the ceasing of volition. And the way going to the ceasing of volition is this Aryan Eightfold Path. That ease, that pleasure, which arises because of volition, that is the satisfaction that is in volition. Insofar as volition is impermanent, fraught with suffering and unstable, that is the misery of volition. That restraint of the desire and lust that are in volition, that putting away of the desire and lust that are in volition, that is the escape from volition. Whatsoever recluses or Brahmins, monks, fully understand these things as before, for them it may be said there is no more the whirling round. And what monks is consciousness? These 6 seats of consciousness, seeing consciousness, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and mind consciousness. This monks is called consciousness. From the arising of nama, rupa, mentality, materiality, comes the arising of consciousness. From their ceasing, its ceasing. The way going to its ceasing is just that Aryan Eightfold Path. In this way, monks, a monk is skilled in the 7 points. I'll just stop here for a moment. So, with perception and volition is just like for feeling. Because of contact, then you have feeling, followed by perception, followed by volition. But with consciousness, the 6 types of consciousness, seeing, hearing, smelling, taste, touch, and mind consciousness. Consciousness here is said to arise because of nama rupa. Nama rupa is actually mentality, materiality. That means phenomena. Phenomena that consciousness cognizes. That's why nama rupa is phenomena. It arises together with consciousness. When consciousness arises, it has an object, and that object is nama rupa. So, nama rupa is not body and mind, although generally people translate nama rupa as body and mind. Nama is actually feeling, perception, volition, contact, and thinking or attention. You notice nama does not does not contain consciousness. So nama is not the mind. Just now, earlier we said the 4 things comprise the mind. In the 5 khandhas, the 5 aggregates, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness can be said to be mind. But nama does not contain consciousness, so it is not a mind. So from the arising of nama rupa comes the arising of consciousness. From the ceasing of nama rupa, it's ceasing because phenomena is that which consciousness cognizes. So when consciousness arises, it arises together with phenomena, and when consciousness ceases, it ceases together with phenomena, nama rupa. And how monks is a brother is a monk and how monks is a monk an investigator of the 3 ways. As to that, monks. A monk investigates things by way of the elements, dhatu, by way of the sense spheres, ayatana, by way of causal happenings, paticca samuppada. That is how he is an investigator of the 3 ways. A monk who is skilled in the 7 points, monks, who is an investigator of the 3 ways, he is called accomplished in this Dhamma Vinaya, one who has reached mastership, Superman. That's the end of the sutta. So here the last part, the Buddha is saying that we should investigate by these 3 ways. One is the dhatu, elements. Elements may mean the 18 elements, the 6 sense organs, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. The 6 sense objects, the forms, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles and ideas or thoughts, and 6 sense consciousness, seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, smelling consciousness, tasting consciousness, touching consciousness and thinking consciousness. So that may be the elements, or it can also mean the 4 great elements, earth, water, fire, wind. It can also mean the 6 elements, earth, water, fire, wind, space and consciousness. And the second way is to investigate by way of the sense spheres, ayatana. This one should be more of the 6 sense doors. Just now I mentioned the 6 sense objects and the 6 sense consciousness and the 6 sense organs. By way of causal happenings, paticca samuppada is dependent origination. How dukkha arises through the 12 links of dependent origination and how they cease. So if a monk or if a person understands, investigates, he investigates by these three ways, and then he is accomplishing the Dhamma Vinaya. Perhaps I'll stop here, and if any questions, we can discuss it. You see, the Buddha's teachings are to help us to reduce our suffering, and if possible, to end our suffering. And the Buddha's teachings are more of what we can call preventive medicine. If somebody is already sick, normally it is difficult to cure the sickness, right? But if somebody is not yet sick, it is better to teach that person to have healthy life, healthy living. For example, by eating the proper food, by having proper exercise, by not having too much stress, by having enough rest, etc., then that person would not become sick, right? So in the same way, the Buddha's teachings are a preventive medicine in the sense that before we suffer, we should learn and understand the Dhamma. Of course, we suffer a bit before we are ready to want to investigate the Buddha's words, right? But now, having suffered a bit, if we have the wisdom, we come and we investigate the Buddha's words and learn more about the Buddha's teachings. Having learned more about the Buddha's teachings, then slowly we let go of our attachments, right? So, when we are able to do that, and something like this happens to you, your child falls off the motorbike and gets killed by a car, then you accept it, you accept it as a fact of life. You understand that however much you cry until all the tears come out of your body, still the child will not come back, right? So you accept it, perhaps this is the karma of the child, then you don't grieve so much. But if a person does not come and make an effort to understand the Buddha's teachings, just like a lot of people, so the chances are that when something like this happens to them, then they are overcome with grief. And when they are overcome with grief, then it's very difficult to help them, right? Because their mind is already turned in that direction, right? Just like a person is mad already. Because when we are overcome with grief, and the grief is so strong and uncontrollable, a person temporarily becomes insane, just like anger. When the anger in us arises to such a great extent, we might kill somebody out of anger in a rage, because at that moment we are temporarily insane. Just like, for example, if we don't understand the Dhamma and don't practice and don't cultivate our mind, we have 5 hindrances that can be very, very strong. The first one is sensual desire. Second one is ill will or anger. Third one is sloth and torpor. Fourth one is restlessness and worry. Fifth one is doubt. So, if we don't understand the Dhamma and we don't take the trouble to cultivate our mind, when one of these hindrances arise, for example, in a man, the sensual desire can arise to such a great degree that he might rape his own daughter, right? He rapes his own daughter because he cannot control himself, because the sensual desire has come to such a great extent. He does this thing, and later, of course, he regrets it. So, when that thing strikes us, temporarily, it's very hard to help that person, right? So similarly with this woman, if she sees her child being killed on the road and she blames herself because of her carelessness, she go and knock somebody or something and the child falls and is killed before her eyes. And temporarily she's overcome with grief and becomes temporarily insane. To help such a person is very difficult. That is why we must make the effort first before suffering comes to help ourselves so that we are prepared. Sometimes scientists used to think that the mind is inside here. Now, scientists have come to the conclusion that they cannot put their finger and say where the mind is because of certain happenings. For example, I heard of a case. There was a family, I think in Vietnam, which were separated because of the Vietnamese War. So the mother was in Vietnam, and the son somehow managed to go to France, I think. So the mother used to think about the son used to think about the mother. And one day, the mother was dying in Vietnam. And the son didn't know. But when the mother was dying in Vietnam, he had a dream. And he dreamt very clearly that he saw the mother dying in the house, in the room. And he saw exactly the type of clothes the mother was wearing, the things that were in the room, all arranged. Everything he saw very clearly. And then he got up from his sleep and he was disturbed because it was such a clear dream. To him it was so real, he thought it is more than a dream. So he noted the time, the day, the time, Later he got news from his family that his mother died. And later, I think after several years, he came back to Vietnam when the war ended or something. And then he asked his brothers and sisters whether the mother died wearing a certain color of clothes, whether she was in a certain position in the room, whether there was such and such things in the room, everything. And they confirmed everything that he saw in his dream, So in this case, you see, when the mind is very strong, it can reach out from Vietnam to France. So that's why things like this, scientists now they say they don't know where the mind is. But actually, in the Buddha's teachings, everything is in the mind. Everything is in consciousness. The whole world arises from consciousness. There is a sutta where it is stated that the whole world arises in consciousness. When with the arising of consciousness, there is the world. If there is no consciousness, there is no world. Just like a dream. When we are dreaming, and the dream consciousness projects another world. Our mind, in a way, is like a computer, When you play a computer, what comes out on the screen depends on the program you put in, yes or not? So similarly, what comes out in the screen of our mind depends on the program we put in. And what is that program? Karma. Because of karma, for example, if you have done a lot of good deeds, the moment you pass away, the mind will create a world which is a beautiful world for you. So that everything you see is beautiful, all the sounds you hear are beautiful, smell, taste and touch. But if you have done a lot of evil deeds, and the moment you pass away, the mind conjures up a world where it is like hell, where you see people suffering and crying in pain, and then the sounds you hear are crying, moaning sounds, and the contact you have, you are cut, you are burned, you are suffering bodily pain, even mental pain also. So it is all the karma that is programming the mind. There are three words that denote the mind in Pali. One is citta. Citta is more than a thought. A thought can be called citta. The mind can also be called citta. And then another word that is used is mano. Mano is the thinking faculty, the scheming faculty, the calculating faculty. So in man, mano is very, very well developed. That is why we are called M-A-N, from the word M-A-N-O. You see? That's why in the whole world, in this earth, man is number one, right? Even when an elephant sees you, the elephant also scared. Because you can take a gun and shoot him down. So the third word that denotes mind is vijnana. Vijnana is consciousness. Consciousness. So these three words are used slightly differently in the suttas, but the Buddha didn't take the trouble to explain exactly the difference between them. But you find consciousness concerns normally the 6 types of consciousness. The seeing consciousness, and the hearing, smelling, taste, touch and thinking consciousness. But there are certain suttas in the Nikayas which talks about a different type of consciousness. For example, apatitang vijnana, unsupported consciousness. That is why there's a lot of things in the suttas we don't take the trouble to investigate. If we take the trouble to investigate, we find certain things which are normally not even mentioned by any monk. For example, this apatitang vijnana. This apatitang vijnana is a kind of consciousness which is, apatitang means unsupported. Unsupported. The normal 6 types of consciousness are consciousness with a support, meaning an object. And the consciousness arises together with the object. For example, hearing consciousness arises because sound must come first. Sound must come to the ear, and then the hearing consciousness arises. Similarly, with seeing consciousness, a form must come before the eye, and then the seeing consciousness arises. So these 6 consciousness, they have an object. But apatitang vijnana, unsupported consciousness, has no object. See? That is why some people, some monks, they say or they claim that the state of Nibbana, in the state of Nibbana, there is still a type of consciousness without an object. But of course, sometimes people will argue about that, so there's no point to argue. We just have to practice, and eventually we will know ourselves. There are other types of consciousness mentioned which is not the normal consciousness. Animita vijnana, signless consciousness or signless concentration. Boundless concentration also. So that is consciousness. And then mind is only referring to the thinking faculty. And chitta is more encompassing. It can mean the thought, it can mean the whole mind. So these are the 3 words that describe the mind. The first question you asked concerning the Buddha having the 5 aggregates. The Buddha has the 5 aggregates, just like the Arahants have 5 aggregates. And some people say that because the Buddha has no self, that he has no suffering. This is not according to the Buddha's words. In the Buddha's words, in one of the Khuddaka Nikaya books, the Buddha does say that he has the 5 aggregates, and because of the 5 aggregates, he also has suffering, physical suffering. It's only when he gives up, relinquishes the body, then only he has no more suffering. When the Buddha was 80 years old, he used to complain to his attendant, Venerable Ananda, that the body gave him a lot of pain because the body was breaking up. Even the Buddha's body has to break up. So when he was about 80 years old, the body gave him so much pain. Sometimes he found it very hard to bear. He has to go into samadhi, goes into deep samadhi, and then feeling and perception stops. And when he has no feeling, he has no bodily feeling, even though, so he abides in that state. He abides in that state. And later when he comes out of it, because of that deep samadhi, the pain does not affect him for some time. But later, the pain will come back again. So he has to enter samadhi again. As long as we have a body, we will have to suffer. That's why the Buddha says, Nibbanang paramang sukhang. Nibbana is the greatest bliss. When you don't have a body, that is the greatest bliss. Of course, phobia is related to mind because it is mind-made. In fact, nowadays, I think most doctors agree that most of our sickness is mind-made. Most of our sickness. And phobia has a lot to do with our past. For example, some people, they have claustrophobia, right? If they are in an enclosed space, they panic. It has something to do with the past. If a person is scared of taking a plane, it may be that perhaps the person died in a plane crash before. For example, many people, including myself, when I go up to a high height and high building, you look down, you get very scared. But some people are not scared. You see them walking. I've seen these workers walk on the scaffolding or a crane, those high cranes that they use to build multi-story buildings. Some of these workers, they just walk on the beam of the crane to do some repair without any tying anything. They're not scared. But most people are scared, maybe because in our past life we fell to our death. So when you look down, all your legs get weak already. There's one lady once who told me, an old lady, she said that when she meditated, when she started to meditate, after a while she would feel suffocating, as though she's dying, and this will persist for some time. And this happened for, I think, many months. Then she asked me why. And I said, possibly because in a previous life, you might have drowned or something. So, because our mind, I like to use this simile, if you have a glass of water, and that water contains muddy water. If you allow the glass to stand still, without disturbing it, all the mud will sink to the bottom, right? But if you go and shake the water, the mud will start to come up, right? So I think similarly, our mind, we have a lot of memory from the past, which has settled down in our mind, and we've forgotten about it. But when we start meditating, and then we are disturbing our mind, we're going into our mind ground, and some of these things start to come up. So like for this lady, something from the past, this choking feeling from the past came up again. So there are some people, they may have a traumatic experience, either when they were young or in a past life. For example, a girl being raped at a very young age. So when she starts to meditate, a lot of this fear starts to come up, you see. And a person, sometimes, some people, they meditate and they may have a breakdown. So it can be dangerous. You have to be very careful. In fact, some of these things in our background, in the depths of our mind, I think they have to come up if you want to cure yourself. For example, several years ago, there was a Thai man who came to learn meditation in a Thai wat in Kelantan. And after practicing meditation for a few days, he started to act as if possessed, He started to act like a monkey, jump up and down, and he couldn't be controlled, and they tried to catch him. He ran into the forest and stayed in the forest for a few days. And the sons had to go and look for him and bring him back. And after that, the sons didn't allow him to meditate anymore. So the monk who taught him meditation was a bit disturbed, the fact that this man came and learned meditation under him, and this man had a mental breakdown. So he wanted to know why. So he started to ask. And later he came to know that this man, he formerly, he had a monkey, he reared a monkey maybe to pluck coconuts, and the monkeys from the forest came out to disturb his monkey. So he took his gun and shot the leader of the pack of monkeys. So when he started to meditate, this thing came up. And he acted like a monkey. You see? So from here you can see it's quite dangerous. If the memory in his mind is not brought up and slowly erased, then maybe when he passes away, he might become a monkey, right? So there are certain of these problems in our minds. If people have these problems, they have to be very careful and slowly try to bring it up, try to understand and come to terms with it.